Welcome to the Bella Vista Garden Program. I'm Geri Hoerner, President of the Bella Vista Garden Club, and joining me today is Brian Grosnickle, and he is also a member of the Bella Vista Garden Club and also owns the Village Garden and Landscape Company. And it's located up on Trafalgar and Kingsland in Bella Vista. And today we'll be talking about things that you can do in your garden in November. I mean, there's not too much you can do, but there are some things. And we'll also be talking about forcing bulbs for the holiday season and maybe a little decorating, the items we can pull out of the garden and whatever we start talking about.
Yep.
There aren't too many gardening events coming up in November. It's kind of a slow month,
Yes.
but we kind of need a break after this horrible summer we've had. The Bella Vista Garden Club held their plant sale October 3rd, I believe it was, on a Saturday. And the leftover plants that we didn't sell are still at the wastewater, Village Wastewater Company, and they can still be purchased there Monday through Friday between 9 and 3. And so we still do have some plants and trees and shrubs that you can purchase there. And we still have quite a bit of iris. There's a lot of iris that still could be planted this month.
Okay.
Have you got iris at your shop
We've
right
got
now?
a lot of them.
A lot of iris?
Probably 200-300.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pulled several thousand from the trail, so we
Wow.
had a lot of iris.
Yeah.
But you can still plant your iris at this time. And this is also the time of year for the Benton County Master Gardener classes that are held in January. The deadline is coming up soon to sign up for Master Gardener programming. If you're interested, you can call the Extension office at 271-1060, and they will send you an application. When you return that, they will let you know if you're accepted in the program. They have about 144 Master Gardeners right now, and they usually have a training class of about 30. And they'll let you know if you're accepted, and then you'll just send in your check. There is a fee, a small fee, I think it's $75 for the class, which you get a huge manual, which is worth the money, just for the classes. And they have classes twice a week in January. 40 hours of training, and it's usually on like Monday or Friday or Tuesday, Thursday from 8:30 to 4. So the classes will run about 3 weeks in January. And it's wonderful training, and I think Brian should go through it.
Well, I'll look into it.
To think
It'd
about
be
it.
a good time of year with it being a little slower.
Right, it's a slow time of year. That's why we have the classes in January. There's not much going on. We're not pulling people out of their gardens,
Yep.
and it's a good time to do that. And again this month with the Master Gardeners, we're showing a Meet the Masters session presentation where a Master Gardener and his or her garden is highlighted. And we have chosen Judy Geigle this month as our Master Gardener. And her and her husband Steve live in Bentonville. And fellow Master Gardener Beth Strickland, who's developed this program, is introducing her. So let's enjoy a visit to Judy's beautiful garden.
Welcome to Meet the Masters. We're in Bentonville, Arkansas at the home of Judy and Steve Geigle. Now Judy has a glorious English-style garden, and we're anxious for you to see it today. I see Judy working down there in the shade garden, so let's go meet her.
I've lived on this property for 18 years, and so the garden is 18 years old. But of course, over the years, we've added to the garden. We added a koi pond about 7 years ago, and areas where I found I couldn't grow grass, I just kept expanding the existing beds. I consider my garden style an English type garden. I was influenced on my visits to England, where everybody had these beautiful gardens, and that's what I've tried to duplicate.
Judy, I just love this border. Your inspiration out here.
Well, my first inspiration is that this is the sunny area, so I could branch out from the shade and enjoy some sun perennials. This phlox was given to me by my mother's sister, and I planted this. It sort of took over. Last year we had to thin it out a lot. Then I needed some height, and so I've added clematis and the New Dawn rose, and you know, every year it just sort of changes from year to year. Well, my garden specialty is shade gardening, but my gardening passion is container gardening, and I began container gardening because there were areas of my garden where I needed to add color and dimension, and it was so rocky I wasn't able to plant the plants in the ground, so containers solved my problem. My favorite perennial is a hosta. It's because I have a lot of shade and I can grow them successfully, and they're very easy. You plant them, they're very reliable on coming back up. When they die down in the winter, you don't have to cut them off. And my favorite hosta is a striptease. It's a tricolor hosta that I found. And then my most unusual hosta is called a drinking gourd. Beth, I want to show you my most unusual hosta. I bought it, this is only its second year. It's called a drinking gourd hosta. It has very cupped leaves and deep veining, and I think as a mature plant it's going to be such a great unusual addition to this spot.
Where did you find this hosta?
I bought it at Hilltop Nursery in Ash Grove, Missouri. You know, it's just about 10 minutes off of I-44 before you get to Springfield. There are 3 deer that come out here, but you know, I have good luck using that Milorganite. I throw the Milorganite away, and see, I can sit in that sunroom and I can watch them sort of sniff around. Yesterday I was talking on the phone and there was one eating these ferns. And I said, just a minute. And I came out here and go, don't eat the fern today. And the only place that I have not had success with that is that there is a urn over here that it now has a lime green elephant ear in it, but it used to have this beautiful hosta, tall hosta, and they will not leave it alone. It's just right at their level. My earliest childhood memories about gardening is watching my mother plant coleus. And at the time, I thought, those are the ugliest plants. Why does she take the time to get out there and plant those coleus? And now that's one of my very favorite plants, because I don't know if there's new varieties, but they just add so much color and texture to gardening. Well, the thing about myself that no one would ever guess is that I'm a native of Arkansas. I've never lived anyplace else but Arkansas. I've educated in Arkansas, and all but one of my immediate family, including my brother, sister, and their children, still live in Arkansas. Well, my future plans for the garden is to try to take it back about 5 or 6 years ago when I had these beautiful winding paths through all of my beds. A lot of stepping stones that you can't even find now because ground covers have taken over, and so I've realized in the last year that I need to do some house cleaning in the garden.
Well, I tell you, the garden there was just beautiful.
That was very nice.
And it's nice to see in this time of year to
Yeah.
see something other than falling leaves. But it's also interesting that we're not the only ones in Bella Vista that have rocks to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
So they also have some rocks in Bentonville, and it depends where you live. Everybody's got a little eco session right around their area, and a little different. So, but we wanted to talk about today about what we can plant in November yet. There's still shrubs and trees that can go in.
Yeah, right
as
now,
long as the weather holds up.
Pansies and kale, of course, cabbage, decorative cabbage flowering. Snapdragons do real well.
Right.
If you want something for just a border of color, liriope, some might think it's kind of plain, but at least it gives you winter color.
Right, the liriope is just green all year round, and
Yeah.
it's tough. You
The
can hardly
hollies,
kill it.
Yews do real well. Just basically, there's a lot of possibilities to keep color in your garden.
And also all winter
And doing
long.
containers. A lot of mums they'll bloom twice here and cut those back and then let
So
them bloom again.
once they bloom, you cut them back and they bloom again?
We
Have you had that?
do ours like in late spring.
Oh yeah, well
and then let
we
them bloom.
deadhead them.
Yeah, let them bloom in the early spring or summer, and then cut them back again for the fall.
Oh, I
So you
haven't
get two
tried that. I usually just deadhead mine
Yep.
and take all the buds off all summer
Yeah.
till about mid-July, and then just
Yeah.
let them bloom once.
Yeah, well, we've got ours. I've had
Blooming
some for
twice.
5 or 6 years that bloom twice a year.
Well, that's really going to be nice to
Yeah.
have that color twice. I
Yeah.
never tried. I'll try that this year. So, the other thing we want to talk about is using things out of the woods and out of your garden for decorating for the
Sure.
holidays. For Thanksgiving, you can decorate with different things that you just pull out of the garden or whatever. I have some things here that can be used like Thanksgiving. Your standard Nandina is starting to turn, the berries are starting to turn red. And the longer you leave them on the vine, or on the tree, they'll get redder. But later in the month, they'll be pretty red. They do fall off a little easily, but I don't know how you keep them on without having them fall off, but they do fall off. But this has got it holds its color and it stays really nice in a design. So those are really wonderful to just pull. Along with your cedars out in the woods, you have cedars out there and boxwoods. I trim a lot of my evergreens this time of year just to use the trimmings in ornamentation decorations. This is the dwarf Nandina, and
It'd look good to use after it turns red.
right, it turns a little bit more red later in the year, and it just stays wonderfully. You can just put this in dry, and it'll stay and kind of dry like this, and just maybe turn a little bit on the brown side. But it's a wonderful decoration for the fall. And then pressing leaves. We used to press leaves when I was a kid.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
good
had
for-
one of those huge dictionaries
Yeah.
that weighed about 100 pounds, I
Yeah.
thought. And we would put the leaves, in the dictionary. But my mother always had us put them in wax paper.
I've
that
seen doing it
wouldn't-
that way too, and it kind of preserves them a little better.
Well, she was worried about the dictionary being ruined
Oh,
with
yeah.
any of the moisture, so
Yeah.
she would say we have to use wax paper and
Yeah.
put the wax paper on. But what other methods do you use to dry leaves? Do you dry any leaves? Or?
A lot of things. I'll just take like grasses, bundle them up, turn them upside down. You can do the same with sage or
Sage you can dry like that too?
just put a rubber band around it and let it dry upside down. And
Okay.
you can either use it. A lot of people use it for cooking, or you can use
Yeah, I
it
use
as
it for
for
cooking.
decorative. A lot of times I'll take like eucalyptus or a silk and mix in with something fresh. You use some florist foam in a container. That way, like golden euonymus and pine look good together. Use some of the heavenly bamboo, the berries, just anything for a variety of color. But then you could put in some different things, maybe some holly snippings. Just all depends on what the person
Because
likes.
I always, like I said, I did a lot of my pruning in the fall for my color, and I don't think it really hurts the bush to prune this late.
No, there's
Most
some
of your
things-
evergreens can take a little bit of
Sure.
pruning in the
Yeah.
late fall. So, well, that's great. The other thing I want to talk about was forcing bulbs. Now, a lot of people say you have to cool the bulbs for like 4 to 6 weeks before you force them, and there are only I only found one nursery or one florist in the area that had bulbs that were cooled, and that was Brick Street Botanicals down in Rogers, and they had put some bulbs in the refrigerator and pre-cooled them. And I haven't found too much difference in forcing bulbs that have been cooled or not cooled. They say you're supposed to cool them and they are better, but I haven't found too much
Most
difference.
bulbs they'll do what they know to do, and
Right,
it
as
doesn't
soon
really
as
matter.
they get in that water. I do have some containers here that you can use something like this to force your bulbs. And you can, as long as you have rocks or pebbles or something to hold the bulb in place, and you can just stick your bulbs right in here. They can be touching, and as long as they're in like halfway, then put your water up to like halfway the bulb and watch your water level and keep it full with water, and they'll start putting their shoots out. Now if they start growing too fast, you can put them in a dark place and slow them down a little bit. Sometimes they'll go too fast for you and you want them for Christmas and they're coming up too fast. You can do that.
Maybe a cooler environment too would slow them down.
Cooler and darker. And for Christmas, you can use something a little fancier if you want. These are just color marbles, clear marbles. So you can put them in something like this. They've got so many different colored rocks and glass. You can make any kind of combination. So those are what you would use to force your bulbs, as long as they are halfway in the water. Any container would work. And I also understand they like alcohol.
I've never heard of that.
I have heard that they like vodka.
That's interesting.
And we tried it, I think, last year with our garden club luncheon. And they forced bulbs. They went a little fast, so they had to slow them down a little bit.
Well, that's interesting.
I think they like a little lip here and there, just like some of the rest of us. So, and then what else do you have right now at your garden center that?
Right now we've got a huge selection of really nice pansies in every color you can imagine. The kale and cabbage, snapdragons again. We do have some mums that are remaining that still have 2-3 weeks of color left on them.
Right.
Right now this is basically the time where you clean, leaf removal, clean your pots, put those in storage so they don't freeze. A lot of houseplants. Many of them, if it's a tropical, it needs to be brought in. It should have been brought in by now.
Right, if they're not in by now, they're probably gone.
Toast.
Yeah.
Getting them in a larger container, going one size up, and fertilizing them for the winter.
Now, if you don't want the plant to be larger, can't you take them out of the container and like trim the roots a little and put them back in that container?
Yeah,
I've heard
it could be a little bit of a shock to them. If anything, once they're root bound, that's when they produce foliage. So if they are root bound, they're kind of going to do their thing. If you have them in a larger container until the root has wrapped its way around the pot and found its boundaries, then it will not produce the foliage.
Okay, so it'll stay smaller.
Yeah.
So I just heard that you can keep it at a smaller size so it doesn't just keep getting bigger and bigger. Sometimes you take these houseplants out, and after a few years, they're so big you can hardly get them back in the house
I've got one that I had to take out to the nursery because I couldn't get it in and out through the doors anymore, and it's about 12 foot tall now, so it had to find a new home.
Right. Okay. The other thing about tropicals is I just discovered there's a place in Siloam Springs that has a tropical rainforest, and we had them at our Master Gardener meeting this past meeting, and it was a unusual situation to have a rainforest in the Midwest. So we'll have to get some more information about where he's located. I know he's in Siloam Springs, and I think he just lets people come and see his beautiful garden.
Is it just a private residence, or is it a business?
It's a private person, and he just doesn't charge to come and look at his rain garden, but he's got some very unusual plants. In fact, I think he said the director of the St. Louis Botanical Garden was at his house last week, and he picked up a plant. There's only 3 or 4 known in the world.
Wow.
And now the Botanical Garden has one, and he has 2.
Huh.
So he has some very unusual plants, and he is in Siloam Springs, and I just don't recall his name, but we can get some more information on that at a later date. But it would be interesting to see those tropicals at this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always nice to see plants no matter what time of year it is. And the things we would need to do in our garden in November, like I said, there's really not much you can do. Raking the leaves and all that. The annual herbs are basically, the annuals are gone for the summer, except for those annuals you talked about that are on sale now. The perennials, your mums are still blooming, and for the perennials over the winter, sometimes I'll cut off the tops, and sometimes I leave them. Sometimes, they'll have some seeds maybe for the birds, and I'll leave them them on the...
Generally, it's just a matter of choice. I found a lot of them tend to, once they go dormant, if you just leave them alone over the winter, let them do their thing, and then do the cleanup in the spring, and that'll kind of encourage them.
That's what I do. And then for the leaves, I just take my leaves and take them off the lawn. Got to get them off the lawn, and just put them in the flower beds for the winter, and let them just, you know,
they make
protect the
a
beds.
good mulch.
They do. And we're going to talk about leaves in a minute too, about some disposal items.
Yes.
And roses, you have roses at your nursery,
We
right?
still have some knockouts, some double knockouts left. It's almost a little bit too late in the year. We've brought ours in about 2 weeks ago, but I like having color indoors when I'm working in the greenhouses throughout the winter. So, but there is a new one. It's a knockout rose. It's called Buttercup. It's bright yellow. And it's the first yellow knockout that'll be available after about April 15th. Is when we're getting our spring crop in from Greenleaf.
Okay, and you're going to be the only one carrying that.
Yeah, they don't sell to Lowe's or Walmart or Home Depot. They sell to independents only. And
So
we're
the
the
box
only
stores aren't going to carry these.
They will
You're
not
gonna
have them.
Well, it's really great that these local nurseries have things that you can't find anywhere else. I think that's really important. And the knockout roses have just gone off the charts. Everyone loves
They're very
knockout
easy
roses.
to take care of. They're virtually disease resistant. You will have to treat them for Japanese beetles, of course, but that's an easy
They
thing.
have to eat too.
Yeah.
So, okay. And as far as the lawns, we talked about keeping the grass off of the lawns and keeping the leaves off the lawns. And in the Insights Bulletin that was just sent out with the water bill, there's an article in here about leaf disposal. There is a way you can get rid of your leaves. There's, if you take them to the stump dumps,
It's right across the street from me.
right, there's three stump dumps in the village. And if you just take them to the stump dump, if you don't have access to, woods or native
Ravine
property
or-
around, or
Yeah.
ravine or something, you can take them to the stump dump, but you have to be sure and take your bags or your containers with you. Don't leave the plastic bags there. Just leave the leaves. And be sure not to put them in the lake. A lot of people on the lake just rake them out or blow them out into the lake, and that's really not good for the lake. The lake gets enough leaves with all the undeveloped property, and it really does interfere with the fish and the wildlife around there. So don't rake your leaves into the lake. And if you're going to burn them, if you don't have any other way to get rid of them except burn them, be sure and call the fire department ahead of time and let them know that you're going to burn, and they can let you know if there's a burn ban on, so that if it's not safe, they won't let you burn. The best thing to do is just shred them and use them as a mulch. They're really a nice mulch in your garden over the winter, and if you could just shred them with your lawnmower or shredder.
Same with pine needles, putting those, building those up around like an azalea or a hydrangea.
Oh, they love
works real
that.
well because it slowly feeds the acid as they kind of decompose over the winter.
Yeah, because the acid does change over the winter with all the rains. The rains leach out your salts, but it also leaches out some of your nutrients too. So, and as far as trees and shrubs, like I said, we mentioned you can still be planting some trees
Shrubs
and
more than trees.
shrubs.
Trees take a little longer to acclimate themselves, and I'm afraid that if we do get a hard freeze or anything below 25, that's going to be a little bit brutal on them. But if they've not got their root system in place, it'd just be a little bit of a shock. So I would probably say wait till after April 15th, which is the last hard freeze, or the safe date, they say. Shrubs, pretty much anything that's a zone 4 or 5 is good here, as long as the ground isn't frozen. You do need to water them in and fertilize them upon planting. But there's
We're a
still
zone 6 here, so
Yeah.
anything that's hardier than zone 6
Correct.
is able to plant. And like I said, we still had a few shrubs left at the wastewater plant that were left over from this fall sale. And as far as vegetables go, if your vegetable garden, a lot of people plant like rye. Grass is a winter crop over the vegetable garden, and then they just till it in the spring to give it some nitrogen and all, just so the weeds don't grow. But the weeds have been terrible this year.
Yep, they sure
Weeds have
have.
just been awful. So anything you can do to avoid the weeds is a good thing. And then the website at the Benton County Master Gardeners gives you more information. So if you have any other questions or any other items you needed to talk about with gardening, there's the Benton County website, and it's bentoncountygardening.org. It's on your showed on your screen. It's a wonderful website. There's one section on there that I think Janet Carson has a lot of her columns and her questions, answers. And that's kind of a good thing to do over the winter, is just go through, is educate yourself about different things. If you're curious about hydrangeas or other plants, you know, you can actually go in and find answers to some of your questions, and that really does help. And the Bella Vista Garden Club has a great website too, and we have quite a bit of information on our website. Cobb's Corner is one that Diane Cobb is a master gardener, and she has a lot of information on her little corner of the website. We have also some questions and answers that Mary Doyle had done years ago that were very interesting. And we have some links on our website to different locations. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention is one of the links we have is the P. Allen Smith gardening link. And he has a newsletter he sends out. And he mentioned in his newsletter that he takes large buckets, galvanized buckets, and he plants tulips in them. He just puts drain holes in with an ice pick, puts some drain holes in, and plants tulips in these large galvanized buckets. So he has buckets of tulips in the spring. So that's another thing you can do with your bulbs. If you don't force them for the winter, you can actually plant them in buckets or containers. And it's still not too late, I don't think, to plant your bulbs.
Do that just about any
Tulips
time,
it's good to plant tulips in November. And I've planted bulbs all the way up into December when the weather wasn't too bad. So it's still not too late to plant your bulbs. So I want to thank you, Brian, for coming today.
It was nice.
And it was interesting to hear all the things you have at the nursery, and hope we'll be visiting there. Do you have different winter hours now?
Not really. We were there, you know, getting ready for spring, getting cutting started, just doing some projects around.
So what
the
are your
nursery.
hours during the week?
Monday to Saturday, 8 to 4:30, and then Sunday I'm usually there about 10 to 5.
Okay.
If the gate's open and music's on, I'm there.
Okay, well, we'll look for you there. And I thank you again, and I hope you've enjoyed the show, and you'll tune in next month. And until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.